So I'm going to get started, and I'm sure others will join in shortly. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here with us and joining us in our mental health webinar entitled, Is 2020 Getting You Down? Today we have 4 panelists with us, each bringing their own expertise and their own unique insight and perspective into healing the mind, the body, the heart, and soul during these times. They will share with us their guidance and some tools and hopefully some possible solutions to issues that we're dealing with today. I'd like to start with some brief introductions. I'll start with myself. My name is Lori Arena. I'm the moderator for today, and I am parish nurse at Holy Trinity Church in Westfield, New Jersey. For those of you who don't know what parish nurse is, that's okay. There are quite a few who don't, and it's my pleasure to explain. Parish nursing is also called faith community nursing, and it is not unique to only the Catholic religion. It's in all religious denominations, Muslim, Judaism, and other Christian denominations. What parish nursing does is they integrate faith and healing to help people lead healthier lives. And the nursing approach is a holistic approach, combining mind, body, and spirit. It's not a new field of nursing. It's been around since the mid-'80s. It is a unique concept here in this area. As a matter of fact, this is the first program that Union County has right now. And it's a program that we started a year ago here at Holy Trinity, and it's been my honor to spearhead this program. So it's just been wonderful for me. And what a parish nurse does is we offer guidance for our parishioners. I act as a resource person, a referral source. Educational programs such as these are provided, and I make visitations to parishioners in their home, sometimes in the long-term care facilities, or at the hospitals. So that's basically what I do in a nutshell. Now for our panelists, let's start with Christina.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Christina Cafone. I am a licensed clinical social worker, and I'm the director of a school-based counseling program at a local high school in Elizabeth, New Jersey, which is wonderful. I get to work with a lot of teens and adolescents and provide them support within their school setting when they're experiencing crises or situations with their friends, things that are going on at home, helping them prepare for college. So that's something that I truly, truly enjoy. And then in addition to managing that program, I also am the owner and founder of Hope Healing Happiness Counseling Center in Fanwood, New Jersey, where I serve the Union County area, focusing on adolescents and young adults. My specialties are eating disorders. I work a lot with clients who are also struggling with anxiety, depression, life transitions, helping them really just build the skill set they need, I think, to be successful and achieve their goals and overcome any kind of roadblocks they may be facing. So I have a background in the school setting and then also in private practice.
Thank you, Christina. How about Dr. Goddard?
Hi, welcome everybody out there in Zoom land today. If you're like me, you're looking forward to hearing anything we can to help us get through this time. It's been 6 months now, and it certainly has been a strange journey so far. So I think a forum like this is really wonderful, and I look forward to it myself. I'm chief psychologist at Trinitas Regional Medical Center, where I've been chief psychologist for 31 years now there. And I oversee the internship program there, the psychology internship program. I oversee the psychologists and other things in the hospital. But I am also director of wellness management services for the hospital, where we go out to schools, organizations, companies, providing all kinds of consultation, program development, training and development for people and organizations to really meet their goals, feel better, do better, live healthier, happier lives. And I'm just delighted to be here and hear from everybody.
Thank you. We're delighted to have you. How about Michelle?
I am a yoga teacher. I love yoga. So bottom line, yoga is life. Life is yoga. And I specialize in being a parent. And I also do specialize in yoga teaching people with traumatic brain injury. So when we talk about this time, and I know the reason for this particular workshop panel is to help us through life in general, not just through the last 6 months pandemic, because there is life that goes on outside this pandemic. People get other illnesses other than corona. There's not just COVID. And just within my yoga classes, just reminding everybody that this is just another step, another way to just experience life. So I'm here just to help you stretch, breathe, and grow, and just feel good. Feel good in your body, feel good in your mind, feel good in your thoughts and your conversations and around people, and share that. Just share it with everyone around you. Thank you for coming.
Thank you, Michelle. Father Anthony Randazzo.
Healthy blessings to all. I am the pastor here at Holy Trinity in Westfield, and part of the role that I play as a pastor in a community is to encourage the spiritual sacred journey of all peoples. That is to say, to see the blessings in human experience in and through relationships that are centered in a faith community, in and through pastoral care, in and through generating hope through, in our tradition, the Catholic ritual, Catholic prayer life. Thus, the role that I have seen during this pandemic period is to really encourage healthy spirituality, to see one's life as grounded in God's presence, and in and through others, seeing that we are all the people of God, coming to acknowledge the divine presence as a compassionate presence, particularly during this period in human history. Very grateful to Lori, our parish nurse, and very grateful to the other panelists for giving such needed time to be in community with those who are out there listening and others who will see this in the future.
Thank you. So thank you, panelists. I know you have a busy schedule, and I really appreciate the time you took out of your day to spend it with us. Before we get started, just a couple of household items. If any of the participants want to send a question to us or a comment, you could utilize the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. We will be checking it throughout the webinar, and we will address your question. Also, this webinar will be recorded, so it'll be available to you. It'll be on our website, and we could share it with you, and you could share it with friends, family, colleagues, and just have it for your own reference. And also, at the end of the webinar, we'll be posting a resource page that will have things we wanted to share with you that we feel are useful tools, some websites, some books that we feel are really good. And so that'll be available to you at the end of the webinar. Before we get started with the questions and answers, I just wanted to share with you a reflection. This was a gift for me from my niece. And she knew that my husband and I were at a transitional point in our lives. We were moving from our house of 25 years to an apartment, and she gave this to me, and every once in a while I'll read it to help keep me grounded. So I just wanted to start off with this reflection. May today there be peace within. May you trust that you are exactly where you are meant to be. May you not forget the infinite possibilities that are born of faith in yourself and others. May you use the gifts that you have received and pass on the love that has been given to you. May you be content with yourself just the way you are. Let this knowledge settle into your bones and allow your soul the freedom to sing, to dance, to praise, and to love. It is there for each and every one of us. Yeah. Now that will adorn the walls of my office. Okay, so now I'd like to start with the questions that were sent to us by the participants. Thank you for sending in the questions. I think they are a reflection of what a lot of us are feeling today. So I'd like to start with the first one. There will be many repercussions and mental health issues, such as post-traumatic stress, post-COVID. Can you recommend anything that might prepare us or to help minimize this from happening? Anyone?
Lori. So I want to first thank you for sharing that reflection with us. I think that was beautiful, and I think it really speaks to just kind of trust and believe that things are, how they are supposed to be right now, and finding meaning through the difficult things that we are experiencing, but also the beauty that comes out of hard situations. And that is also an opportunity for growth. We are all kind of going through this together, and it looks a little different for every person, but I think we really do have to kind of trust and believe and accept where we are today so that we can learn and grow from it. In terms of the first question, I'm sure we can all speak to this, but one of the important pieces that comes to my mind is just building resilience within ourselves. Building kind of self-compassion and kindness. So knowing that if we are having a difficult time, really honoring that and acknowledging that, and then also looking for strengths within ourselves to continue forward and leaning on other people. So we might need some extra supports one day, and that's okay as well. So speaking to colleagues, speaking to friends, speaking to family members, developing a cope ahead plan for yourself, I think, is also really important. And, kind of exposing ourselves to things that are difficult too. So I know in the beginning of this pandemic, a lot of people were staying inside and were so fearful and scared. And I can speak to myself as well. That was something that was really worrisome for me. But I think when we develop a plan ahead of time to cope that maintains our safety and comfort level, that helps us to push forward as well.
I'd respond to that. I think in terms of making it through this strange, crazy time that we are living through, it's very important to understand the impact on us. And I think that a lot of people are going around feeling, numb, and they're not sure about what's happening, or they feel as though, well, it will pass. And I think we're kind of in a state of suspended animation. But I think it's good in terms of being sure that we are not going to be traumatized from this in the future and really come out of on the other side with greater spirituality, growth, understanding, being much better. It's said that when one goes through crisis, the worst thing that can happen is to come out the same. We really want to grow from it, learn from it. And in my mind, I think in terms of, I like shortcuts because my mind can only take in so much at a time. But I think of a tidal wave that has hit us, that this pandemic has been like a tidal wave. And that stands for T, for traumatic global event, I for injury and pain, D for the defenses that we are using to try to make it through this, A for it being a struggle and the choices we have to make, and L for living a deeper, heroic life journey. And I think to begin with, the traumatic global event, and this is mind-boggling. I love history. I love all history, world history, the whole evolution. To me, it's amazing how far we've come in such a little time. 100 years ago, we barely had electricity and certainly not planes and everything. But in all history, it's been so rare that there's been something that stopped the entire globe, has shut down and stopped, come to a halt. And it's mind-boggling how intense it is. And we're living through a time that is very historic, very unprecedented, of great disaster. And it's almost a test for all of us to see, well, what can we do? It's like a Rorschach, a test. How can we make it through this? TI, injury and pain. I mean, it's very painful. We have loss, we have isolation, we're kind of, so much that's different. Everything that we knew that felt so good about our lives, that we enjoyed and that we took pride in, and we got a sense of self-esteem and identity and worth, it's gone. I mean, we're stuck in our houses for the most part, or we're just going to work, or being so careful that, it's really been very painful for so many of us. The economic hardship that we're going through, the anxiety, the emotions that are difficult, the depression, the feeling out of it, the numbness. We're worried about our health, the health of loved ones. Many of us have lost people to COVID, and it's really very upsetting. And then D, for the defenses. A lot of us were just trying to make it through this, and maybe we're waiting for it to be over. But it's almost, when trauma hits, one experiences a numbness, we're in suspended animation, I think, a lot of us. And certainly some of us are coping well. I speak to patients, colleagues, friends, family members who love this, who say there's been nothing better. But a lot of people, I don't think they realize how it's hit them. And they're kind of in a state of being numb, detached, not knowing what to feel. They're on automatic. They're just waiting for it to be over. And the defenses that we're using, a lot of us are eating a lot more. We're drinking more alcohol. The alcohol sales have gone way far up. We're binge watching TV shows. I've discovered great TV series that I love. All kinds of things, but it's really things to kind of have us deal with all these difficulties, screen time, Facebooking and whatnot, just to kind of get it out of our mind, almost trying to pretend like it's not there. So it's really created for a struggle in choices. Do we want to just, there's some choices. Do we just hang around and try to make it through this and, wait for it to pass? Do we use denial and just say, well, it's not so bad, and at least I've had this, I've got that, and make it through? Or do we, make a choice that, no, I'm going to have some fight. I'm going to be a warrior here and really learn something from this, improve myself. I mean, there's so much of what this COVID has done to the world that is horrific and difficult and painful, but there's so much. I mean, we know it's cleaning out our environment. The fact that, pollution, you can see clear skies in the air. It's so beautiful that one can appreciate life again. So the choice is, do we just go on automatic and try to wait for it to be over just to get back to our normal materialistic lives, hyperactivity, running around, doing 1,000 things, being workaholics in our society? Or do we really use it, make a choice to use it as something for personal growth? And that brings us to L, living a deeper, heroic life journey. I mean, what can we do to really make life more wonderful? And it's the old, Governor Cuomo thing when he says, well, you have to not just ask, how are you doing? You have to ask, how are you really doing? It really calls on us to be more true to what it is we're going through, because it's hard for us to even know, because we're in the state of numbness and it's so unprecedented, so shocking. To be more true to our emotions, ourselves as human beings, what's going on, to really figure out what are ways I can make it through this by being better, by really giving so much more to other people, taking better care of myself, to grow spiritually, emotionally, maybe financially when we get that back in order, but to really realize that we are on this heroic life journey. And what happens in the hero's life journey is there are bumps in the road that really, knock the person off. And you have to build skills in the 4 key areas of life: body, mind, heart, soul, in order to, really use this time to become better, to become more loving, caring, giving, making a contribution to other people. So I think it's really, number one, we really have to realize that this is so off the scale for anything any of us have been through. I mean, even the Spanish pandemic wasn't quite, took more lives, hopefully not that, but it wasn't quite as global in its scope. It's just amazing. And that we really have to, I think, make choices, personal choices, in terms of struggling with the issue that, well, in order to do something with this, to rise above it, we have to really work at it, and we have to take care in that work.
Wow. Yes.
Thank you. I have to remember that title. I love that.
Yes.
That's
Tidal
great.
wave, tidal wave that has hit us.
Tidal wave.
The only thing I'd like to just add to what has already been said is that part of all of our considerations for public health, for economic health, is our spiritual health. And when I consider spiritual health, everything that I've heard thus far is a dimension of spiritual health. That is to see facing crisis, facing suffering. But as we include in that for lack of better terms, the God presence or the presence of God or divine ambiance or the inclusion of God in all this, that we are not in any way facing this without the multiple manifestations of God's compassionate presence. Above all else, as we go about our dynamics, as we implement our tools for self-survival, for community survival, hoping that our awareness of the wonder and awe of God's presence is somehow breaking through all of this period of uncertainty. That's my hope. That's what I'm trying to encourage. That's why everything I've heard thus far, I'm listening to God speaking through professional people like yourselves. And as we all listen, God is prompting something within us that can be of great personal and communal assistance. Reflecting personally and reflecting communally opens up the larger, expansive presence of God.
So pardon my family. I'm coming back to the question, can you recommend anything that might prepare us or minimize this from happening, being mental health issues, post-traumatic stress, post-COVID? And I think it's probably not a bad idea to get a physical, check in with your doctor now, have a relationship with healthcare people who you know, who you trust, who maybe have known you now, and get a sense for your physical health. And so that if you maybe need some guidance along the way, you already have just reestablished a relationship with someone who's going to know you and have time for you and be able to have a better understanding of what you were like maybe prior to this pandemic and how you're doing now, and some healthy tools along the way. Coming from a yoga background and perspective, I think that stretching your body, physically moving your body, even if you're in your home most of the time, does wonders for your stamina, for your overall state of mind and presence, and being grounded, like landing. So while Dr. Goddard mentioned, yes, we're in this kind of proverbial kind of like circling the airport feeling, like we haven't been given permission to land for a long time. Land, physically land, feel your feet on the ground, look at your feet on the ground, lie on the ground, like actually ground yourself and give yourself permission to be okay. Give yourself permission to say, I feel good. And instead of maybe focusing so much of your attention on what's going to happen after this, maybe you're going to feel fine. Maybe you're going to feel great. Maybe you're not going to be set up to feel bad later. And how do you feel right now? Because planning for what you're going to feel like later is wasting your time that you're in right now. So live in the moment that you're in right now. Take advantage of what's happening right now. And I always kind of chuckle a little bit with students that take classes with me. What are some of the things on your to-do list that you never have a chance to get to? Clean out a junk drawer, donate clothing, because there are organizations now that are taking donations again that were shut down early on. So you can donate to clothing or whatever you have, work for the food bank. So there are things that you can do to make you feel better so that when this passes through, it will pass through. You can kind of have maybe a new sense for who you are. Maybe you learn some new skills. And I think it's reasonable to have bad days, but we had bad days before. And just try, if you notice that you're spiraling deeper, be aware of that. Reach out to a health practitioner, somebody that can help you. Reach out to a friend or a family member. Cry if you need to cry. Don't hold it in. You don't have to be a hero. So just be real and be honest. And last but not least, maybe try using the word natural life versus normal. The new, I made a commitment from the day two, I think it was, when I heard people say the new normal. So many times I wanted to jump out a window. I'm like, okay, so natural, right? Natural. Let's go with natural. Let's check into nature. Understand that nature has a plan and viruses are nature, and we are going to just plug into nature and move forward. Just keep going, but check in with healthcare providers now and just, you know, get a little health, mental health check, physical health check, and feel good. Yeah.
Thank you, Michelle. And it's so true. So many of us have put our physical being on hold. We're afraid to go to the doctors. We had to do it virtually. So people are starting to make appointments now. I know for me, I have an appointment in December because they're so backed up. I think that is important because stress and anxiety take such a toll on the physical body. So thank you. Okay, so I think we spoke to this a little bit, but here's another question. Reframing the challenges of living during COVID-19 as a time for spiritual growth seems easy enough. But what suggestions do you have for actualizing that?
Well, you know, I would start with prayer. I mean, prayer can take on so many different forms, whether that prayer is verbal prayer, whether that prayer is being guided by sacred writings, prayer that is of the body, heart, and soul, another way of describing yoga. Prayer is a means of enabling the spirit within to really take a deep breath. I love the yoga terminology about the breath. Thus, my recommendation is silence, prayer together, finding the moments to get away from the noise, get away from the narcissism, and get away from the nonsense. If you can get away from those three ends, you give yourself an opportunity just to open up into God's presence, which is always seeking your willingness to be experienced. God is seeking us as much as we seek God. God is wanting to be in relationship with us as much as we are wanting to be in relationship with God. God is initiating the relationship with us as much as we are always groping to initiate that relationship with God. It's not what we do. It's just being open to this awareness of divine presence through prayer of any kind that can help a great deal for spiritual survival or actualizing spirituality. Discover the meaning of prayer.
I'm going to come back to yoga again very quickly. Anyone of the panelists or people that you know who only see yoga as an athletic event or an athletic activity and one that you already have to be flexible for or something that you already have to know how to do or be good at, yoga is, I don't know if you can see way back there, it's a tree hanging on my wall. That is a tree of yoga. It is multi-limbed. So whether you are sitting in a chair, if you are wheelchair bound, if you are disabled in any way, the physical aspect of yoga, all the postures, is just one of the 8 limbs of yoga. So there's meditation, there's silence, there's breathing, there are so many mantra, there's so many different ways for you to practice yoga, meditation. You certainly do not need to be an athlete or able-bodied in any one way in order to practice. So that is something that if many people come to me and say, I would love to practice yoga, it's on my bucket list to try, I really want to try it, but I'm not flexible, I can't touch my toes, I can't. And so whatever the things are that you can do can help you strengthen yourself, your body, your mind, your soul, your spirit, your heart, all of it. And they all work together. So you kind of come in from a back door, maybe you think, and it ends up being your yoga. So yoga is life, life is yoga. It's however you want to enter in, and it will help you.
I would add to these wonderful things that I think a kind of little talked about access to the spiritual life and spirituality is our emotions. I think that very often our emotions get in the way of our spirituality when we're stressed out, when we're anxious, when we're freaked out, when we're upset, when we're depressed or down or tired. And I kind of see emotions as sent from the sacred realms, from the divine. They really are very quiet. They're there, but I think our relationship with emotions, we never get trained in school how to deal with emotions. There are no classes in it. And I think it's kind of a three bears story that you've got people, they're too hard, too soft, or just right. There are people where they just let their emotions take them over and they're just so stressed out and they're so freaked out and so anxious, or they're so upset, a lot of the time, and preoccupied with what's going on inside. And it's all they can see. And then we don't see God, the sacredness of life, the wonderful things in life, because our emotions just shake us up too much. And then there's, the three bears, too little, that, a lot of people push their emotions away, and I want to be unemotional and have a spiritual bypass and not deal with my emotions at all and not feel them because they're just, they're ugly. They make me feel too compromised or something. And then there are people who really create a positive relationship with their emotions. Emotions are a sixth sense, and we wouldn't want to be without any of our other senses: sight, hearing, smell, touch, taste, all of it. But somehow emotions, a lot of people are like, they don't understand it, but they're a sixth sense. In Star Trek, there's one of the iterations of one of the generations of Star Trek things when Mr. Spock, with his intellectual cognitive abilities, couldn't figure something out. They bring out the woman from the planet Empath with her feeling. They say, well, what do you feel about this? How's it? There's a certain valuing of our emotions and befriending our emotions and creating a relationship and even talking with our emotions that can be very, very positive. So we're not always kind of subject to being taken over by them in negative ways, but really valuing them. Not just obviously the emotions of awe and wonder and feeling great, but the emotions that make life, make us who we are, our soul, that really has to do with some very pain. Life can be very painful. And to be able to kind of use that pain to grow, to learn, to work with, I think is very important. So I give a shout out there for, in terms of, how we can develop during this time of stress and strangeness, of being able to be more in contact with, create a better relationship with our emotions, is being very important.
Yeah, I think, our emotions are constantly trying to communicate with us and share information with us. And sometimes we're so distracted by them because they can be very overwhelming, or we're feeling them at an intense degree. But I think Dr. Gotti, you're exactly right. They're there for a purpose and a meaning, and we need to learn from them and understand what they're trying to teach us and communicate with us. And I think also with spirituality, really just connecting with yourself, taking time for self-reflection, understanding what's going on with you internally. Sometimes life goes by so quickly and we're constantly multitasking in this world. And I think what I've learned is really to slow it down and to connect back with ourselves and, really grow from that, I think, and learn from that. The other piece too is observe and describe what's going on around you. There's always actions from other people. And sometimes that's spirituality, as well. And I think Father Anthony was speaking to this as well, just God acting through other people. And we really need to take a moment and appreciate that and recognize maybe this situation was put in front of me for a reason. Maybe this person was brought into my life for a reason. Look at all the good that has come out of this. Look at all the helpers that are extending, a hand to reach out and support you, and communities coming together. So that recognition and staying grounded and observing, I think, is also really important.
Just would like to add what you both have said so very beautifully. Back in the day, Father Frank McNulty, a very revered priest in our diocese, is 93. He wrote a book entitled Theology of Feelings. And the theology of feelings and emotions was basically to say that the feeling and emotions prompt us into the deeper acknowledgement of our humanity. That is to say, if we are to look at the archetypal story of the first book of the Bible that could be read by any denomination, you will see the full gamut of the emotional life in chapters 1 and 2. That emotional life in 1 and 2 is not only between the primary characters, Adam and Eve, but it's also in relationship to nature, the natural world that Michelle has spoken about, getting back to natural before normal. That means going back to Genesis. That means exploring and excavating and discovering, not only in my head, but in communion with other people, because we discover the full depth of our emotional life, not as a solitary journey, but always in unison and in communion with others. And if that can be another gift of the pandemic, where we come to this deeper self-intimacy and a deeper shared intimacy that's been created by suffering, what an outstanding movement in history this could be.
Thank you.
Kind of just piggybacking that on, I wanted to mention before in terms of experiencing this as a traumatic global event, piggybacking that onto the last part, you mentioned the first part of the New Testament, last part of the New Testament, the story of Job, where God and the devil make a bet about if we took everything away from him, would he then be such a wonderful person? And this is the situation, as you're saying, that we have right now. Well, what are we going to do with this situation that we have? How can we really make something of it? Once everything's been taken, so much has been taken away, all of our normal pleasures and things that we were so used to.
Yes.
Here's another question. How have students/trainees in the medical field benefited from what's been learned during this pandemic? If I could begin with that, I'm enrolled in at St. Elizabeth's University, and I am in a classroom with mainly new graduate nurses. And I've been with them since last January. And I'm still with them, and we're finishing up now. And they graduated and started working as new nurses at the height of the beginning of this pandemic. So they never worked in the hospital prior to that. And many of our classes, which are via Zoom, has been spent talking to them about it. And it's been very emotional for them. And they not only had to learn how to be a new nurse, and which usually you're focused on the tasks that you have to do. So it's more task oriented, getting through the shift, charting on time, and you somehow lose sight of the patient because you're so focused on what you have to do physically. And what I feel they've learned is, which was mentioned before, is how to be resilient and how to be compassionate, because many times these patients were in isolation, and the only person that they saw was the nurse. They had to fill in for a family member, and they had to fill in for the chaplain sometimes. So they had to quickly learn how to be compassionate. And sometimes it could take years and years to learn how to be compassionate. And sometimes we don't always learn how to be compassionate. So they've grown so much in the 1 year I've been with them. And the seasoned nurses, such as myself, said, we've never seen anything like this in all our years of nursing. So look how you're starting out. You're so way ahead of the game. So that's how I feel they've benefited from this pandemic.
I have a similar experience to that. I train people to be yoga teachers, so I'm a lead teacher in a teacher training program, and our students were preparing to graduate in April, at the end of April, We began in August. Everything was on course, just like we're all flying, you know, the safe skies, and then we had a hover. So we dove right into Zoom and we gave them a choice. We said, would you like to wait until this passes, or we can jump on Zoom and we can keep going. Keep going is my mantra every day. And so we did, and we kept going on Zoom, and that's exactly, the first day was very emotional because, you know, we're all here doing the Brady Bunch thing, and it didn't take us long, maybe 3 hours in, everybody kind of settled into the style of learning that we were working with. Forced myself and my partner, my co-teacher, to teach in this way. And we realized very soon that, yeah, they got more than what they paid for, because now they learned how to be yoga teachers in a technological world. And technology is something that we're always fighting so much, thankful for, because without technology, we wouldn't be talking to each other right now. And they came out of their teacher training, they graduated on Zoom. We did the graduation on Zoom. We had a fun little way of passing a torch from screen to screen. And they've all got their teacher training certification, and they all started teaching on Zoom. And instead of waiting and doing nothing and just kind of holding pattern, and our great teachers so got to learn even more, and learn in a way that they never would have been able to, because this is gonna keep going. Like, there's not gonna be a snow day at school anymore. Snow day, everybody get on Zoom, you know, and so things happen, you know, we're having a wedding, I can't come, we'll Zoom you in. So it's going to keep happening. Zoom isn't going away. Google Classroom isn't going away. So having to have been forced to learn in this way is a bonus. It's a bonus.
Yeah, I would add, in terms of the way that this whole pandemic has affected training of all kinds of medical professionals and psychologists, social workers, etc. One of the many bugaboos that I have, I mean, I love the medical profession. You know, I mean, they've quadrupled our lifespan. You know, we have so much more time to live and enjoy and appreciate life over the period of time. But I think one problem with the medical profession is everybody is a specialist, and everybody's looking like, you know, with monocular vision, and fragmenting the situation, so that if you are, you know, I mean, for example, with my mother, when she had very bad arthritis, and she was given medication to cure the arthritis, it ended up giving her 7 bleeding ulcers in her stomach. Everyone just looks at the one particular department, and not enough people are integrated, looking at body, mind, heart, soul. How does it all fit together? How does it all work together? Even I, as a psychologist, you know, we think in terms of cognitions, mind, emotions, you know, how does health play into it? Eating, diet, everything. And I think that the pandemic has really given everybody an appreciation for it all fits together. We all should need to be much more integrative in terms of how do the emotions and our attitude about things affect the way we're dealing with things, just in terms of precautions that we take, in terms of our lifestyle, in terms of our health, in terms of how, if we get COVID, how it will affect us, all sorts of things that are really so much more integrative. So I really appreciate that aspect. I'm seeing that so much more so in terms of people's openness to that and awareness of the importance of being integrative in medicine and all of our medical and psychological endeavors.
Yeah, I think Dr. Goddard and I both work for Trinitas, and we both have experience, I think, working with interns as well. I think Dr. Goddard does a lot with interns. I usually take one on. But I think in terms of learning, it's really taught adaptability. So that's amazing too, to see how we've been able to so quickly adapt to what's changing. And push us out of our normal routines. You know, sometimes we get stuck doing what works because it's working, but it's not always maybe the most efficient way to do something. So students, I think, are learning to be adaptable. I think they're pushing themselves in new directions, but I also think it's encouraged us to all become students again, because we're learning alongside, these new nurses or these new medical professionals, new mental health professionals. We're trying to educate ourselves in order to best help them to grow, but also to help ourselves grow, because we haven't been through this either. So I think that's another point as well.
I so enjoy the point on medical students and people, your interns that you're both working with. I would hope seminarians who are training for professional ministry would also have teachers like yourselves who would be helping them to understand the integrative and the adaptability and the flexibility. One of the points that we have been hoping to communicate in our community is being church at home and being church in person and being church outside of church building. That we are not just a faith community when we're in a building called a church. We are a people of faith with our family and friends in our home place. We are to be people of active faith outside a church building. So this virtual invitation that has come vis-a-vis the pandemic has, I think, given us an opportunity to shift even more deeply into, like you're saying, adaptability into identity and adaptability into corporate identity. And as Doctor said, because this is a worldview, which is, for me, of utmost importance, because we're not talking only about survival for the US, we're talking about world survival. We're talking about how we all want to explore the larger world and how we want people coming back to us and how I would like to be in Paris next summer. So we need to make this happen, but this will only happen when we look at the shifting and we train future medical professionals and we train future people in religious leadership and we train future people in corporate leadership. Anyone who is in the training process, we cannot overlook the advantages of this period of time.
Thank you. Here's another question. The less I have to do, the less I seem to get done. Since COVID started, all my activities have been curtailed or eliminated. I'm staying up too late in the evening and sleeping too late in the morning. How can I get motivated to keep moving and to be more productive?
Ask a busy person to do something and it will get done. Ask a busy person, right? I mean, who has not heard that? So if you are feeling useless or tired or lethargic, stagnant, all of those things, volunteer. If you volunteer, first, I'm going to say it again, get on the floor, lay down on the floor on your back and take a big giant stretch and just clear it out and breathe a little bit, just get your body moving and volunteer. Volunteering will make you feel better and it will make everybody down the line from you feel better. And it will turn your kind of ho-hum, dull drum, all that kind of stuff into something much brighter and possibly put you on the path to be somewhere else when this all comes through on the other side. And then you can say, I've learned how to do something else and look back at this with a positive light, something that you may not have ever done before. That's it.
I think, starting small, we need to focus on what's really important for us to change. So if we're out of our routine, like I think a lot of us are, how can we start to create that routine for ourselves again? What are our priorities and how can we build them back into our schedule? So for some people that looks like to-do lists, having a running list of things and saying, I'm going to pick 3 things off my list to do each day. And that helps people, hold themselves accountable. Really, I think also reflecting on why are these things important to me, so I can find the motivation to do them, right? So finding meaning in things is really, really important. We talk about that in therapy all the time, to create this internal sense of drive and motivation to succeed. So I think starting small so we're not overwhelming ourselves, and then gradually building that back in. I would say the other thing to look at too is vulnerability factors. So why am I getting less things done? What's coming into play with that? Again, I go back to self-reflection. So looking at what's going on in my life. Am I really stressed? Do I need to start focusing on that first before I can, tackle some of these other goals? Am I getting enough sleep? I know that's been a really big challenge for people during this pandemic. So reflecting on how can I build a better sleep routine out for myself? What do I need to do? Do I need to turn off electronics earlier? Do I need to journal before bed so I can clear my mind? Do I want to have a cup of tea or listen to a meditation or do some yoga or breathing, like Michelle was saying? So paying attention to those vulnerability factors, making sure I'm hydrated, making sure I'm taking care of myself, that I'm eating, that I'm following, my nutrition plan. I think all of those are also key things that sometimes get overlooked. We don't realize how important it is just to practice self-care and self-reflection before we even start to tackle bigger goals. But I think starting small, setting realistic expectations for ourselves, and knowing where we want to grow and where we want to be.
To piggyback on something Christina just said, because everything was really fantastically said, but it really kind of, in my mind, flicked the switch in terms of the importance of sleep. That, as I said, this whole pandemic thing, I think, has been traumatic in many ways, but it's like a quiet trauma. We've hardly seen it, and we don't even realize we're going through it. So it's put us in a state of being numb. And when we're numb, kind of stressed out behind the scenes, we're going to lose sleep. And sleep is like one of the first things to go. And when we haven't gotten much sleep, our mind can't focus, we can't be productive, it's much harder. So I want to share my particular technique or trick that I suggest in terms of getting better sleep. Number one, obviously there's a lot to be said there and a lot of things that great people have said about getting better sleep, but a couple of things I would add to the standard things are, number one is to outlaw problem solving before, during, or after sleep. You think, oh, I've got all this time on my hands now to figure out all the problems that I'm facing and find solutions. Forget about it. It's the worst time to try to solve your problems, because the ego and coping skills are at their lowest before, during, and after sleep. So number one, outlaw trying to think about all your worries and problems and solve them before, during, and after sleep. Number two, I really suggest creating a story in your mind, a fantasy. You won the lottery, or you're traveling around the world, or you're a secret agent or something like that. What it does, it starts to reduce, to get to sleep, we have to reduce the brain waves in our mind to much lower brainwave status. So when we're thinking, we're in thought, the brain waves are very, very high and fluttering around. As we start to get into visual mode, thinking about a story in our head that we can continue night after night, or if we wake up during the night, what it does, it starts to decrease the brainwave pattern, and it starts to put us, and it's also more soothing, starting to put us more to sleep and help us to get to sleep better. So yes, resonate that with what Christine was saying. Particularly sleep is very important to be able to wake up feeling good and being able to be productive.
Doctor, let me just add a point to that. Having been on the Camino, the deepest sleep I ever experienced was walking 8 to 10 hours in the natural world and then coming to a cot somewhere and putting my head on that pillow. The point is that in the natural world, we breathe in all that fresh air all day long. We're really external creatures. Our evolution is from outdoors into indoors. So one of my contentions is that if we really want deep sleep, get outdoors.
Yes.
Get more time in cold weather. I tell people, in the change of seasons, what you need to do is embrace the temperature changes. Yeah. Embrace them, hug them. I'm going to find embracing the temperature changes on a golf course, but it doesn't just have to be on a golf course. It could be in the forest. It can be walking in a park. The more time outdoors, breathing in the air, the better the sleep. That's my simple suggestion.
By Camino, I'm assuming that you're referring to the the path, the walk in from
Yes,
France to
yes,
Spain
yes,
to go to Santiago de Compostela.
yes.
Certainly someday when the COVID is over, you can get back to Paris, but maybe do that again, because I'd recommend that for everybody and anybody. I did the Camino too, and one of the most fantastic spiritual and physical wonderful experiences in my life. But yes, definitely slept very good. But every night before going to sleep, I promised myself after walking 6 to 12 hours a day that I'm taking the bus to the next town. I'm going to get a taxi. I'm going to not walk anymore. And just somehow in the morning, I'd wake up and my legs just sort of automatically would get me walking again.
That's right. That's
Definitely
right.
helped. Good
And
night's
a glass
sleep
of
like that
wine helped also, I must admit.
along the way.
And Michelle, maybe we could continue yoga classes outdoors in the winter
I was
time.
going to actually speak to Father Anthony about that. Maybe at the church, you would like some outside yoga there.
Yes.
Like that.
I was
We
thinking
can
about
get to
that.
one last question, this kind of like going forward. How do we mentally prepare for a fall winter that still includes a pandemic and its restrictions and will keep us indoors more than ever?
Coming back to the concept, idea, plan to live right now. Do all the things that you can do outside in this beautiful weather now. Get some puzzles, get your puzzles out, and try just, again, set up some space in your home to be able to stretch and move and breathe, and try thinking positively is, for me, it is the only way to go. The only way to plan for we can't plan like we used to plan. We can't make plans to see someone, to go somewhere. I'm sure for many people, you went through Easter, you didn't get to go to church. I'm Jewish on this panel. We're not having our high holiday season starting this weekend the way we've ever done in the past. This is my father, who's 87's first year in his entire life not being able to go to temple during the high holidays. This is hard. Possibly there may not be midnight mass inside the church. I pray that there is, because it's beautiful. I've gone. But I find that everybody I talk to does a whole lot better when they try to stop worrying about what's going to happen later. What can I do to plan for later? Plan your dinner for tonight. Let that be later, right? Plan the walk around the block. It's gorgeous outside. This weather is beautiful. It's September. So plan things that are more manageable and take some of the worry, like the weight of what's to come, away, because you don't know. It's going to change in 5 minutes anyway. So trying to make plans for something that we really can't plan for is wasting your energy. You're wasting your energy and only upsetting you more.
Yes.
I
And
think,
for those that are stuck indoors, that can't get out and walk, I think shutting the TV off and not waiting for the news every day. I know my mom and her sisters every day waited for Como to come on, and it just stressed her out. She had anxiety. There you go, the books that we're going to show to everyone. It's just, put music on, put on Pavarotti, put on something a genre that you love listening to, but tune some of that out. You need to keep up with current events. I started just checking it on my phone once a day, but it gets to be a little addictive. So that's.
I'd like to also make a commercial for planning ahead. I do think can be good. And to resonate with what Michelle was saying earlier, I do absolutely agree that nature is so healing. It's so necessary. We've lost our connection with nature, the earth. It's so important. And in terms of planning ahead for this kind of thing, I basically couldn't really deal with winter until I discovered down in my childhood or teenage years, just buy a lot of good warm clothing. And still, there's something about being outside in the winter. One thing the pandemic has done, it's made our connection with nature so much better. We're outside so much more in parks and everywhere. And I would say to really be gung-ho about that, going into winter, just dress warmly. There's something about the quiet and the silence in the winter of the stillness that you experience that really is good. So I would say that we should really think about, continuing this connection with being outside even in the winter.
And just one thing to what Father Anthony said about prayer, pray for a warm winter.
Snow is good. Snow is beautiful.
I like snow, but let's pray for warmth.
So,
I
no, go
I would
ahead, go
also
ahead.
be careful about, assumptions or associations. Sometimes we always assume that,
Right.
oh, it's going to get colder and I'm going to get more down and sad and depressed. And those assumptions and associations that we create sometimes lead to like a self-fulfilling prophecy of this is just going to be terrible. And I think like everybody spoke to, find meaning and beauty in things and make sure you're building out time for breaks. Just because it's cold outside doesn't mean we can't go outside. We just have to bundle up and add another layer and, make a hot chocolate before you go on your walk. But I think like to echo what everybody is saying, that the power of just fresh air and being in nature and being outdoors is really healing within itself. And I think that's just something we shouldn't lose sight of going into the winter months, that we should still appreciate it.
I think North Face sales are going to go up. That's for sure.
Oh, yeah.
So, well, thank you, everyone. I think this has been fabulous.
Wonderful.
I really do. I'm seeing comments in the chat room, and everybody has really given us such beautiful comments and compliments. So thank you. It's all been very insightful, and I think I walked away with a lot of resources and tools to help me through, and I'm sure everybody else has as well. This is being recorded, so you could share it with whoever you want, and we're going to post a resource page for you that has some useful information on it. And also, if you have any questions, you could always email me, parishnurse@htrcc.org. And it's been a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Goddard, Father Anthony, Michelle, and Christina. You've been great. Thank you. Marina, you want
Sure,
to
hope
put
we
that
can do all this again one day.
Yes,
My hope is
yeah.
we can do this again one day. Maybe before the end of the year, we can have this panel once again. It was such an honor to be with
Holiday version.
That'd be great. That'd be
auspicious
great.
folks. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. And there's a resource page. Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone. Dress
Thank you.
warm.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye. Take care.